Level 1. The Altar Server. You are 10 years old. Before most of Rome is awake, your mother is already fixing the collar of your white robe in the entrance of the basilica. The stone floor is cold through your shoes. The church smells like candle wax, old wood, and incense that has settled into the walls over centuries. Your job is small. Before the larger Sunday Masses, you prepare the thurible. You check the charcoal. You make sure the incense boat is filled. You run the chains through your fingers one by one, because if one twists around another, the thurible will not swing correctly. Nobody in the congregation will ever notice if you do this right. They will notice if you do it wrong. One morning, you rush. The procession is already forming. The priest is waiting. You lift the thurible and realize too late that two of the chains are crossed. It swings unevenly. The lid tilts. A piece of burning charcoal almost strikes the side. After Mass, Father Matteo takes the thurible from you. He does not yell. He untangles the chains slowly, places them back in your hands and says, "Reverence begins before anyone sees you." That is all. You are 10. You do not fully understand what he means. But the next Sunday, you arrive 15 minutes earlier. For 3 years, you serve at that altar. You learn where every candle belongs. You learn how much incense is enough. You learn how to walk slowly, even when someone behind you is rushing. And somewhere between the smoke rising toward the ceiling and the sound of Latin you only partly understand, something becomes clear. This is not going to be something you do as a child. This is going to become your life. Level 2. The Seminarian. You are 18 years old. You arrive at a pontifical university in Rome carrying 1 suitcase, 2 black shirts, 3 books your parish priest gave you, and the certainty that you know what becoming a priest means. Within 6 months, you understand that you do not. Your roommate is from Nigeria. The man across the hall is from Poland. 2 floors above you are seminarians from Brazil, South Korea, India, and Lebanon. At breakfast, 5 languages can be spoken before anyone finishes coffee. Your days are divided almost to the minute. Morning prayer, Mass, philosophy, Scripture, church history, moral theology, canon law, Latin. More reading than you believed a human being could finish. You study how doctrines developed, how councils fought over individual words, how governments rose and disappeared while the church remained. Then there is Andrea. Andrea sits 2 seats ahead of you in ecclesiology. He is intelligent, serious, and completely incapable of pretending not to notice a difficult question. He asks how the church's relationship with political power has changed across centuries. He asks whether a position can be presented as permanent when its historical expression has clearly changed. The professor answers him the first few times. Then the answers become shorter. A few months later, Andrea is called to meet with his formation director. Nobody tells you what happened. The following morning, his chair in class is empty. By lunch, the books above his desk are gone. Someone says he has been encouraged to continue discerning his vocation outside the seminary. Nobody says he was expelled. Nobody needs to. You look at the empty shelf for several days. That is when you begin to understand that formation teaches more than theology. It teaches you how an institution speaks. It teaches you when questions are useful, and it teaches you when silence is considered a virtue. 5 years later, your rector calls you into his office. The next stage is ready. Level 3, the transitional deacon. You are 23 years old. During the ordination, you lie face down on the cathedral floor. You can feel the cold stone against your forehead while the litany of the saints is sung around you. Then you rise. The bishop lays hands on you. A stole is placed diagonally across your chest. The book of the Gospels is put into your hands. You are not a priest, not yet, but you are no longer standing where you stood the day before. You are assigned to an old parish in Rome under Father Carlo, a priest who has been there long enough to know 3 generations of the same families. Your first homily lasts almost 14 minutes. You prepared it for 2 weeks. After Mass, an elderly woman waits near the door. You expect criticism. Instead, she squeezes your hand and says, "You listened before you answered me last week. Keep doing that." Then she leaves. You remember the sentence longer than you remember the homily. That year, a man comes to the parish office because he has not worked in 4 months and his refrigerator is empty. A family cannot afford the burial they want for their father. A 16-year-old boy sits alone in the last pew every Sunday for 7 weeks before finally telling you what is happening at home. Seminary trained you to answer questions. Parish life teaches you that sometimes an answer is the least important thing you can give someone. Sometimes you sit. Sometimes you listen. Sometimes you cannot repair anything. You simply refuse to leave. Near the end of the year, Father Carlo tells you, "Do not confuse ordination with advancement." You think you understand him. You do not. Level 4, the parish priest. You are 25 years old. This time, when the bishop lays hands on your head, the priests around him come forward and do the same, one after another. Hands, silence, prayer. Then your hands are anointed. For the first time, you stand at the altar as a priest. Your first parish assignment is in central Italy. Just over 1,100 families. A heating system installed before you were born. A finance council with 2 empty seats. A choir director who has been choosing the same Christmas music for 19 years and considers any suggestion of change a personal attack. You celebrate Mass. You hear confessions. You baptize children whose parents you later see arguing in the parking lot. You bless marriages. You sit beside hospital beds. You answer calls at midnight because someone is frightened and does not know who else to call. One winter evening, the hospital calls. An elderly woman named Teresa is dying. You drive there immediately. You arrive 6 minutes too late. Her son is standing beside the bed. You apologize. He shakes his head. "No," he says. "Stay." So you stay. You pray beside a woman who can no longer hear you. Before you leave, her son tells you that the room feels different because you came. You have no theological explanation for that. A few months later, a young woman comes to your office. She is pregnant. She is not married. Her parents have told her that if she keeps the baby, she cannot return home. You know the rules. You know the relevant moral theology. You know the canon law around the situation. You do not begin with any of it. You make coffee. You listen. For nearly 2 hours, you work through names, places, relatives, housing, money, and what happens next. Eventually, a solution begins to appear. Not a perfect one, a human one. 4 years later, a letter from Rome arrives. Advanced studies, canon law, work connected to the Holy See. The letter describes it as an opportunity. You have been in the church long enough to understand that opportunities are often evaluations with better stationery. You pack again. Level 5, the Monsignor. You are 35 years old. By now, people have begun adding titles before your name. You have also learned that titles usually mean more meetings. You are given the honorary designation of Monsignor and assigned to work inside the Secretariat of State. Your first office is not impressive. 2 desks, 3 filing cabinets, a window that looks toward another wall. But the documents that cross the desk are different from anything you handled in a parish. Briefings from apostolic nunciatures, notes before meetings with ambassadors. Draft language concerning wars, migration, disputed elections, imprisoned clergy, sanctions, humanitarian corridors. At the parish, a badly chosen sentence could offend one family. Here, a badly chosen sentence can appear in newspapers in 6 countries before dinner. You learn to read every word twice. Then you learn to read what is missing. A statement can express concern without assigning blame. It can welcome progress without endorsing the government responsible for it. It can call for dialogue while everyone in the room knows dialogue has already failed. You watch drafts move from one desk to another. A paragraph becomes 3 sentences. 3 sentences become 1. One word changes, then another. You begin to understand that diplomacy is sometimes the art of saying exactly enough. You also begin to see the institution from the inside. Appointments influenced by friendships. Problems described as administrative because calling them moral would require a different response. Decisions delayed because the wrong person would be embarrassed by acting quickly. Father Gabriel works across from you. He has been in Rome for 9 years. One afternoon, he tells you he is asked to return to his diocese. You ask why. He closes the folder in front of him. I came here to serve the church, he says. Somewhere along the way, I started serving the machinery. 2 months later, his desk belongs to someone else. You think about that sentence for years. Level 6, the bishop. You are 43 years old. The call comes from the Apostolic Nuncio. A diocese in northern Italy needs a new bishop, not a famous diocese, not an insignificant one either. Enough parishes to keep you on the road constantly. Enough institutions to ensure that every decision affects somebody you have never met. Within your first months, a financial file reaches your desk. Money from a diocesan charitable foundation has been redirected improperly for years. The records are clear. The administrator responsible is connected to several influential local businessmen. One is among the diocese's largest donors. Your predecessor knew there was a problem. He chose not to force it. You open a formal review. You remove the administrator. Then you meet the donors yourself. One tells you that if the decision stands, his family's annual contribution ends. You thank him for coming. The decision stands. Several weeks later, Rome sends a carefully phrased question through the nuncio. Had you considered whether this was the most sensitive moment to act? You write back that delaying action is also an action. There is no answer for nearly a month. Then a short note arrives. Your judgment is acknowledged. No praise, no criticism, just acknowledgement. You understand exactly what it means. Level 7, the Archbishop. You are 50 years old. You are transferred to one of Italy's major archdioceses. Now everything becomes public. You preach about migrant workers, and a government ministry responds. You visit a refugee reception center and television crews are waiting outside. You decline an invitation to a political party's religious event. By nightfall, one newspaper says you have attacked the government. Another says you have endorsed the opposition. You did neither. It does not matter. At this level, people rarely react to what you intended. They react to what your action can be made to mean. You publish a pastoral letter about accompanying Catholic families living in complicated marital situations. Weeks later, a message arrives from Rome. Nothing formal. A request for clarification. Would you consider adding language that might reduce misunderstanding? You read your letter again, then again. You still believe what you wrote. Instead of withdrawing it, you send a theological memorandum to Rome. 20 pages. Footnotes. Magisterial documents. Canon law. Pastoral reasoning. Your signature on the final page. For 3 weeks, nothing happens. Then you receive notice that the matter requires no further action. You won. At least that is what people around you say. You are no longer certain victory is the right word. Level 8, the Cardinal. You are 58 years old. Your name is announced with the new cardinals. Months later in Rome, red is placed on your shoulders. The color traditionally signifies a willingness to give everything, even blood, in service to the faith. You understand the symbolism. You also understand what the red opens. Doors. Meetings. Access. You remain an archbishop, but now you serve on Vatican bodies and are occasionally sent as the Pope's representative to situations that require more than a normal diplomatic visit. A dispute between bishops and a government. A tense anniversary after political violence. Private meetings where the public statement afterward contains almost none of what was actually discussed. Inside Rome, you begin to see how long-term power works. A nuncio chosen today can influence which bishops are recommended 5 years from now. A bishop chosen 5 years from now can shape seminaries, schools, appointments, and public theology for decades. An older cardinal invites you to dinner with several others. Nothing organized, he says. Just conversation. Thinking ahead. You know enough to understand that people only say something is not organized when organization is exactly what everyone is worried it might look like. You think about Andrea's empty shelf. You think about Father Gabriel's empty desk. You agree to listen. Level 9. The Prefect. You are 64 years old. The Pope calls you back to Rome. This time, not as someone preparing documents for other people. You are appointed Prefect of a major dicastery. Every week, files arrive that most Catholics will never know existed. Leadership disputes, episcopal candidates, institutional crises, governments attempting to influence appointments without appearing to influence appointments. You learn that no candidate is as simple as the summary page. One is brilliant, but cannot work with anyone. One is an exceptional administrator, but far too comfortable with a government known for restricting religious freedom. One is beloved locally, but has almost no experience outside his own region. You read, you consult, you recommend. And then the Pope decides. The first time he chooses differently from your recommendation, you spend the evening reviewing the file. The third time, you stop taking it personally. One morning, your secretary places a dossier on your desk. A high-profile diocese, a sensitive appointment. Inside the back cover is a handwritten note with no signature. It says the leading candidate has been personally close to a powerful curial official for more than 15 years. No evidence, no attribution, just a sentence written in blue ink. You read it twice. Then you put it back exactly where it was. You do not use it. You write your assessment from the official record and send the file forward. Months later, another name is announced. Not yours, not the candidate favored by the note, someone else entirely. That is when the lesson finally becomes clear. Being essential to the process does not mean you own the outcome. You can influence power. You can prepare power. You can stand beside power. That does not make it yours. Level 10. The Cardinal Secretary of State. You are 72 years old. The summons comes early in the morning. A private audience with the Pope. You have attended hundreds of them by now. This one feels different before anyone says a word. The Cardinal Secretary of State is preparing to leave office. The Pope tells you he wants you to take his place. There is no conclave, no ballots, no smoke rising over Rome, no crowd waiting in St. Peter's Square. Just two men in a room and a question. Will you serve? You pause, not because you do not know the answer, because after more than 60 years inside the church, you finally understand the size of the question. You say yes. Days later, the announcement becomes public. From then on, the world enters your office on paper. Reports from nunciatures in countries you have never visited. Briefings before meetings with presidents and prime ministers. Notes about wars that may begin. Notes about wars everyone is pretending may end. Requests from bishops. Messages from governments. Humanitarian crises. Internal disputes. Appointments. Resignations. Draft speeches. Confidential memoranda. Every morning people bring you decisions that will eventually reach the Pope. Journalists begin describing you as one of the most powerful men in the Catholic Church. You understand why they say it. You also understand what the phrase gets wrong. You can decide which information needs immediate attention. You can ask for another report. You can tell a diplomat that the wording is too aggressive. You can tell a cardinal that a matter cannot be delayed another month. You can shape what reaches the Pope and how clearly he sees it. But the final decision is not yours. You are closer to the center than you have ever been. That does not make you the center. Most mornings, you enter the chapel before the office is fully awake. No secretaries, no briefing books, no phones. You sit in silence. Sometimes the smell of incense brings back a memory you have not visited in years. Stone floor, white robe, small hands checking metal chains one by one. One evening, long after most of the building has emptied, a stack of correspondence remains on your desk. Near the bottom is a letter from a priest serving in a mountain parish. He has been there almost 10 years. No promotion, no important assignment, no honorary title. The parish is small, the winters are difficult. He writes that he sometimes wonders whether his life has mattered, whether he should have done more, whether serving the same people in the same place for so many years means he somehow failed to become what he was supposed to become. You read the letter once, then again, then a third time. Outside your office are documents involving governments, bishops, wars, and decisions that may be studied years from now. But this letter is the one you cannot put down. You reach for a pen. For a moment, you are not the Cardinal Secretary of State. You are 10 years old again. You are standing behind the altar before Mass. The congregation has not arrived yet. Nobody is watching. 2 chains on the thurible have crossed. You separate them carefully, one link at a time. You remember Father Mateo's voice. Reverence begins before anyone sees you. You finally understand him. You write to the priest. Do the work in front of you. That was always the work. You do not sign with your title. You do not use the name printed on official Vatican documents. You sign with your baptismal name, the name your parents gave you before the cassock, before the ring, before the red, before the offices, the files, the motorcades, the diplomats, and the rooms where people lower their voices because they know decisions are being made. You fold the letter yourself. For almost your entire life, every step seemed to lead upward. Altar server, seminarian, deacon, priest, Monsignor, bishop, archbishop, cardinal, prefect, Secretary of State. From the outside, it looks like a ladder. From where you are sitting now, it looks different. It looks like the same question being asked again and again in larger rooms. Who are you serving? The Church never promised that service would make you important. It never promised that doing the right thing would make you popular. It never promised that greater responsibility would bring greater certainty. Sometimes it does the opposite. Sometimes the closer you move toward power, the more clearly you see how little of it belongs to any one person. And sometimes, after a lifetime spent moving through basilicas, seminaries, parishes, dioceses, palaces, and offices, the thing that remains most important is something you learned before anyone knew your name. Check the chains. Do the work carefully. Do it before anyone is watching. Then carry it where it needs to go.